Hi everyone, this is a short video just to help us understand how to construct major scales. And so I'd like to just remind you of two really important things as we begin. The first is that that whole and half steps are your friend here. So as long as you can make whole steps and half steps from a given note, then you can construct any major scale that you want. And so the pattern to remember here that I have highlighted on the screen now is always and forever for major scales, whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. That's all you have to remember. If you can remember that, then you can make any major scale that you want. And so the other important thing to remember is that major scales are what we call diatonic scales. And that basically means that you're going to use each available letter name once and only once, right? So we have 7 note names, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, that we then modify with sharps and flats. But as long as you remember that you're going to use A once, B once, C once, etc., once and only once, then that's a good way to check your work. So there's 2 examples here that we can see. So let's listen to this G major scale. And there is the sound of our major scale. It's always going to remain the same. It's just going to become higher and lower as we change the starting note. So this is a G major scale because it starts and ends on G. And that's how we name our scales, the starting note. And if you look below here, I have labeled this pattern, whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. And so just to go over how this works, if you are thinking about G as your starting note, the next note in the scale has to be some kind of A, because that comes next, right? That G is when we go cycle around back to A. So it has to be some kind of A. So you think, okay, what kind of A is a whole step above G? And this is where the keyboard comes in really handy. So look at the keyboard at the bottom of the screen. You get G up a half step would be this black key, G sharp or A flat. Put up another half step. Remember, whole step is just 2 half steps put together. So once you get up 2 half steps or 1 whole step, that's when you get A, and you can find A. And we do that for each step along the scale. So starting then from A, for the next one, you need another whole step. This time above A, you find B. Here's we need the half step, so half step above C. Again, half steps mean we're just going to the very next note on the keyboard, right? So we can see here B to C. These are both naturals. This is one of our 2 natural note half steps, right? No accidentals required. It's the place on the keyboard where there are no black keys in the middle of the white keys, right? And on we go. 2 more whole steps, D up to E, and then E up to F sharp. Now this one is where we're going to start having to add our accidentals, right? We know that E, any whole step above E is going to be some sort of F, right? So we know that. So E to some kind of F. Now use your keyboard to figure out what type of F is going to create a whole step. So if I were to just go from E to F natural, like you see there, so E to F natural, look, that's just a half step. And hear the difference as well. That's a half step, but I need to raise that pitch once again. And this is where it's important. I need to make sure that it's still some kind of F. So when I raise the pitch and get to this black key here, I know that it has to be F sharp and not G flat. Because I can't repeat any letter names. And of course, because I'm in G major, the final note here, this last half step has to be G natural. So there's another example here in F major. This one is bass clef. So just make sure you note that change. Going from F to G, again, whole steps. We're skipping pitches. On the keyboard, just one, right? So G to A is next. Now we have to find this half step. A to some sort of B, right? We're always going out one at a time, going along this musical alphabet here. So A up to B would be, A up to B natural would be a whole step. So we have to make that a B flat, and then we get the half step there. So do, re, mi, fa, right? If we're thinking solfege, which we have here. And on we go. We see that we get whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. Great. Let's try an example from scratch. So we're back to treble clef and looking at this example in D major. So starting note is D. Now, I really encourage you to go one note at a time and to really use your keyboard. So if you have a piano app on your phone or something like that, you can probably find something online as well. So D, we know we need some sort of E. So here's what I would suggest doing. I would just write D, then we need some sort of E, and we know some sort of F, right? And we can just continue writing every single letter name. Make sure that you get each one, like this, and then we'll go in and add the accidentals as we need to later. But I think this is a good way to check your work to make sure that you're not repeating any letter names and that you're also not skipping any. And so once we have that, then we can go into the staff here, D, and look at your keyboard. So we know that we need a whole step, which I have labeled down here. So first is a whole step. We go from D up a whole step to E. From there, up a whole step has to be, again, some kind of F. When we go up a half step, it's F natural. But remember, this is our whole step, so F sharp. We got to add that sharp to raise it by a half step. Now you can see on the keyboard, E to F sharp is a whole step because we're skipping a key in the keyboard in the middle. Now a half step. So F sharp up to G, right? G natural. Back to a whole step. Up to A, again, we're skipping a key on the keyboard. Another whole step from A is B natural. A whole step above B has to be some kind of C, remember? So if we go up to the next adjacent key, that's C natural. So, but that's just a half step. So we need a whole step, so we got to skip over that key, go to the next key above that, and we find C sharp. And then finally, the half step back to D. And another great thing to always be able to remember to check your work is that if you end on a different note and you think you did this pattern, whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half, but end on a different pitch, you've done something wrong. So go back and check, right? This should get you from one note back to the same note an octave higher. So D and D in this case. Okay, and let's do an example in bass clef. This time we're in B flat major. So the only difference this time is that we're actually starting on a note with an accidental, right? So black key in the keyboard. But nothing changes. We're still going whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. Say that over and over again, and you'll start to remember it, and it's going to be super helpful. So B flat up a half, up a whole step this time is going to be C, right? So always starting with that whole step. Up from there, from C is D, I'll just do this on the keyboard now so you can watch how this works on the keyboard. B flat to C to D. Now up a half step, just going up to the next key, E flat. Going up a whole step from there, so skipping this E up to F. And we need some sort of G, a whole step. There we go. A whole step above G, skipping the G sharp up to A. And then finally, this is your half step. This is the moment of truth, making sure that you get back to the same note that you started on. Yes, B flat. We've done it. We've made it. So there is our B flat major scale. So as long as you remember this simple pattern and those couple of tips, like making sure to use every letter name exactly once, then you should be able to start on any pitch that you want and write a major scale. So let me know if you have any questions. I hope this was helpful. See you next time.